We are incredibly fortunate to have the next people with us in the room. Most of them either have or will be performing at the YouTube Fan Fest. Between them, they have 10 million subscribers online and billions of views. To introduce them, it's a pretty cool guy with a pretty cool job. The Global Creator Development and Management Lead for YouTube. He's come all the way from the US to be here this week. Please welcome Mr. Bing Chen.
Good afternoon. We're so excited from YouTube to be here and share some of our most prominent new media luminaries with you all. So gentlemen, if you want to come up. The first is Mr. Chester See. Apart from being a billionaire playboy philanthropist, Chester actually started his career at Disney Channel, hosting several shows. Today, Chester is a musician, an actor, a writer, and I think most importantly also a successful executive producer of DreamWorks Side Effects web series. The second, you can go ahead and sit. We've been standing in the clouds all day. This is what happens when the internet comes down. The second is Mr. Ryan Higa. Ryan actually started making videos on YouTube at the age of 14. Ryan actually holds the record globally for having the #1 spot. In other words, being the most popular online creator in the world for the longest period of time, and that's a record he still holds to this day. I think most importantly, Ryan's one of the thousands of YouTube creators that's making a sustainable and lucrative 6-figure income on YouTube alone. And all of this at the age of, I'm going to date him, 22 years old. And the final one is Mr. Rob Nixon, who joins us from Perth, Australia. Rob is a next-generation chef who's adored by both his fans and, I'm told, the Prime Minister of Australia. Also, I think most importantly, Rob is yet another of the thousands of content creators that are making sustainable incomes just on YouTube. Gentlemen, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So, some context. You're allowed to clap.
Yeah, keep clapping. Yeah.
It's tough to hear clapping on YouTube, so this is, I think, new for many of us. So for context first, as we all know, things are changing in our industry, right? Our collective industry. Content is coming and stories are coming from new creators. Fans are becoming more feverish and we're able to target them more effectually than ever before. And naturally, because of these first two elements, we've opened up the gates to new economic opportunities for people like Chester, like Ryan, and like Rob, as well as agencies and advertisers like HP, as well as TV broadcasters and other traditional media companies. So the question that we want to start out with for all of you guys is everyone's trying to figure out what content, whether it's a format or a style or a strategy, is the most effectual on YouTube and more broadly within new media. So my question to each of you is, what is the most successful content strategy? Does it even exist?
Well, with me, with food, you know, television, there would be so many complicated dishes that people would, and you know, people would watch and they go, oh yeah, it looks great, but I'm never going to do that. So what I try to do is make food relevant again. And so we stripped it all back and kept it very simple. And it just really connected with people because they went, hey, I'm able to cook and I didn't know I had this talent. So it builds confidence with them so that there's a real connection there in people's homes.
Very good.
Yeah, I think that what I found to be the most successful over time is just staying current, you know, like touching on topics that are, you know, a big deal at the time. So whether it's, you know, size, Gangnam Style, or, you know, Harlem Shake, whatever it is like touching on those topics when they're hot. And like, you know, that always gets you new fans and gets you a lot of viewers.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to answer a question like what is good content because it's just extremely subjective. But what's so interesting about the internet in comparison to, you know, cable or network is that you have some tools that allow you to be much more engaging with your fans. So I think in terms of strategy, that would be the first thing to, I think, tap into. I keep bringing this up, but we were just at Newfronts a few weeks ago over in New York, and you're seeing a lot of these digital distributors doing these shows, but at the end of the day, they're just making TV shows and then plopping them onto the internet, which in my eyes is boring because we've been there, done that, seen that. What's really intriguing about YouTube And what you see as a general statement pretty much across the board with most of the top YouTubers, the successful ones, is that they're interacting with their fans, they're talking, they're engaging with their fans, they're getting them to help them decide on what the next piece of content is going to be, having them even just create a community of commenting around that content, and so that's something I think that people forget, that you have access to that when you're creating content for the web.
These are all three really, I think, important points in three different dimensions. We'll touch on each of these in a sec, but I want to start, Ryan, first of all with you. Red Bull Media House, which, as we all know, was responsible for that Emmy Award-winning sort of leap from space that was insane and awesome. Red Bull Media House said that they attribute their digital prowess and success to two factors. First and foremost was something called authenticity, and then secondly was something called word of mouth. And I want to come to you because one of your lines that I love is that in new media, personality actually trumps production. What does that mean? How does someone build authenticity? And I think really challenging for all of us is how do you sustain that authenticity?
I think Chester kind of touched on it too. It's a lot about engagement. I think for me personally, I do a lot of vlogging, which is just talking straight to the camera. And in TV and film, you don't really get to do that. You never see that unless it's like, what, Ferris Bueller? Is that a show? That's a show, right? Yeah, I mean, it's talking to the camera gives the audience a feeling of being more of a friend rather than a fan, and I think that's a lot more powerful.
Do you feel like you're jeopardizing any element of that by being both a star and a friend by breaking that fourth wall, or do you think it's critical in new media?
I mean, I personally think it's, a good example is Jenna Marbles. If you don't know, she's a vlogger, and all she does, she doesn't have crazy production or anything. All she does is literally talk to a webcam every single Wednesday. She's one of the fastest growing channels today. And I think that's just a perfect example that you don't really, it's all about being personal with your fans and being personable and not really having, it doesn't matter how great your production is, it's more about what your content is and how relatable you are to your fans.
This is another good line. It's almost as if you could have high quality content without having high quality production.
Exactly, right.
Rob, I know you have thoughts on this.
Yeah, with me, again, back to the food, like when you're watching cooking shows on television, if you need help with something, there's no direct line there to get any help, but with me there is. And I find, like what Chester was saying before about television, like they will take their content, upload it on YouTube and go ratings disabled, comments disabled, we don't want any feedback. And already the engagement's lost, they're not going to watch it. And then they go, why isn't this working? So you have to have that engagement. So I'm like in there helping people going, this is how you do it, or this is where you went wrong. And they're going, oh, this is so cool. I don't get this on the old media sort of platform. Yeah.
We'll talk more deeply at a tactical level about engagement in a second, but Ryan, you mentioned Jenna Marbles. How many of you are familiar with Jenna Marbles? About one person. So or three people actually. Very good, we have three fans. This is not the side of the world where she shines. Jenna Marbles is the second most subscribed partner on YouTube. She has over 8 million and almost 9 million subscribers globally, which is a phenomenal feat, especially frankly for a young lady when most of the top 20 is dominated by males. As Ryan is alluding to, her content literally looks like it was ostensibly filmed on a webcam, and yet she's able to sustain and amass followers of millions, right? Now, so the reason I invoke this is because this invokes the question of quality, right? We hear many times, whether it's anecdotally or in the press or whatever, is YouTube a place for quality content? Is new media a place for quality content? And you have examples like Jenna Marbles, who films on a webcam and has millions of followers. You have brands like GoPro, who have amassed hundreds of millions of views, largely through UGC content. So I want to start with Chester, because I know you thought a lot about this. What does quality even mean anymore, and how critical is it?
Yeah, I think the way that you're even phrasing that question, there's like
it's leading. I know.
It's leading, yeah. In that quality is connected to production value or the aesthetics of the footage, but quality, we define quality, and I think if you're gathering an audience and fans of that content, then there's quality. It's as simple as that. I think that answers your own question. It's such a subjective word, quality. And so it's with all the YouTubers that are making this content, it's just, you look at most of the stuff online and it really doesn't focus in on the production quality. And there's no need for it. If you think about it, it's like, that's taken care of. There's, outside of the Freddie Wongs, I don't know if you know who Freddie Wong is, but he does some really amazing effects, but outside of a few anomalies, most of the content online is really about, again, that engagement, not to be redundant, but it really is about their relationship with the fans.
Let's turn about face. Let's talk about if I were a traditional TV broadcaster or sort of just another established traditional media entity. It's difficult to engage sometimes UGC content, right? For all the reasons we know. I suppose, Rob, what would your advice be to a traditional media maker on how to embrace sort of these communities and this notion of quality?
Just engage them. Just, you know, if they're, like I said before, like closing the comment section down on a video is not a good start because you've already shut the engagement off. So have that. Don't be afraid of what they're going, if they don't like your product, don't be afraid of that because you're going to learn, if they don't like it, hey, let's change that up instead of just force feeding this product to them that they're not going to watch.
Let's change gears a little bit. So everyone keeps talking about engagement. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the engagement statistics, so forgive me in advance. But while there's a lot of content on YouTube, it's being found by a lot of people, right? So we have over 1 billion unique visitors or viewers every single month. They collectively watch over 6 billion hours. So people are finding things that they love across all sorts of devices. I suppose my first question, and this is really for Chester, is you've been on TV, you've been in new media, you've been off media. What is the difference between the YouTube audience or the collective online media audience versus, let's say, the TV or the film audience?
Oh yeah, I've got to witness that a little bit firsthand, and you can see it in the fans. You can see it the fans here in this hotel today. You can see it in the 75 people that had figured out your flight plan just based on a tweet that was at the airport when Ryan arrived. I've talked to you about this before. I've done that test, where you look at the Twitter followers on some of these mainstream celebrities, and you look at the Twitter followers on some of these online stars. And granted, some of the mainstream artists have like this inflated number of like 20 million Twitter followers. And then some of these online stars at the top of the charts are, have maybe 5 million. But when they tweet out or get engaged with their fans, the conversion is way higher for the online star. You can see it. Just based on the retweets and the fans disseminating their information. So because of that engagement, there's a lot more influence that you should attach to these online stars. And so, and like I said, I was dating back to when I was on Disney, when I meet fans, it was a certain level of fervor and excitement when they meet me. But the fans that I meet today, it's like they feel like they know me. And not to quote Seth Godin, but I don't know if you're familiar with Seth Godin's Tribes. It's a great book on, specifically being a leader in the online world, but it's very true. You are a leader of a tribe, your fans. And so there is that sort of relationship there, which I think is really, really valuable.
Ryan, Rob, do you have any other thoughts on how, sort of what codifies the online media audience?
I think at the end of the day, they're the same people, except we're talking to them. And that's it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I think a good example, I completely agree. I think that the engagement that we have with our fans as compared to the difference is that on YouTube, people are getting to choose. They have to choose what they want to watch. On TV and film, a lot of the times they're kind of being told what to do. They're being told, what to watch. I think, for example, if Zac Efron were to have an Axe hair product and say that this is great, a lot of people would be like, well, he got paid to say that. If, somebody like Chester would be like, I really believe in this product, his fans see him as a friend and would be like, I want to get that product because they trust him. They're used to engaging with him. So I think, the power behind, YouTubers and people who are personal with their fans is underestimated.
Let's come back to this real quick. This is a little tactical, but I think this is very top of mind for a lot of companies or even, aspiring new media creators, is how do you scale authenticity? We all know it's important, right? It's important to be a friend, and that's easy when you're an individual doing it yourself. But at some point, you have so many different ventures, and there are only so many hours in a day that you actually can't distribute your time that meaningfully. So my question to you all, you keep talking about engagement, talking about being a friend, talking about authenticity. How do you sustain that across all of your different ventures as you start growing? And have been growing, really?
For me, it's tough. I still, these guys are bigger than I am, but I am still able, and I spend an awful amount of time still engaging everybody. I try and answer as many comments and questions on all, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. But there's going to get the time where I just can't do it. But for me, the stage that I'm at now, I still can. So for me, that's how it's remaining that way, yeah.
mean, I think keeping them engaged and making it's all about being personal with them. I think other than obviously doing the Twitter thing and the Facebook thing and, you know, all the other social medias are great and responding to comments on YouTube, obviously. But the main thing is the content that they're watching. Like, I think, for me, for example, I have this scar right here on my nose, and basically what happened was I took a sword to the face because I was filming this video. And, you know, I could have got a lot more views had I uploaded just that clip and called it Asian Boy Gets Hit in the Face by Sword. But instead, I vlogged it and I said, you know, hey guys, so today I'm talking about this, and I took a sword to the face to make it more personal. Yeah, I didn't get as many views, but I definitely engaged more people and I got more likes. I would have got more views the other way, but probably more dislikes.
One of the things I like about your model too, Ryan, and Ryan's being modest, is Ryan has an entire team behind him that he works with. But I think the difference between Ryan's team and a lot of other teams is that Ryan's team is literally comprised of his friends that just happen to also be colleagues, right? And so one of the beauties of this is, I suppose, not only are you involved in, you know, everything production related and promotion related, but it's also sort of the consistent voice that you have, because these are sort of people who are on a different level than just a colleague.
Yeah, I think for all YouTubers, I think you have to have. Yeah, if you have to have a consistent voice, you have to, whether it's comedy or cooking, you know, it'd be weird if all of a sudden you started doing comedy, you know, or like not necessarily comedy, but like skits and stuff, you know. And it would be weird for me to just do a serious cooking show, you know what I mean? So in general, you just have to stick to your voice no matter what you do. You know, even if I did do something serious, it would still be my brand.
At our recent Brandcast advertiser event in Manhattan that Chester was alluding to earlier, we said that YouTube means engagement, right? And we've talked about engagement. Everyone knows it's important. We try all sorts of different things. I'm wondering, though, at an even higher level, what are the most effectual engagement tactics that you've employed, whether they're on YouTube or more broadly within new media? Rob, do you want to begin?
Well, last year, just as a thank you, because I've always wanted to give something back to them and say, here's something. I wrote this cookbook, and it was my first cookbook, and I gave it away. Now I could have made, I could have made an awful amount of money on this, but I just gave it away, and I said, look, it's free here, and you can buy the hard copy here, or so get the hard copy here. And I think we ended up doing like 10,000 books of that, and they loved it. They were like, wow, this guy's actually giving something back to us. And it's just something that's tangible they've still got, that they'll remember and go, hey, this was a thank you from this guy. That was really nice. Because they won't get that anywhere else. A TV show won't go, hey, here's this free stuff for you for watching. So it's like, it's got to be a two-way street. Yeah.
Chester, you're really good at this as well.
Yeah, actually, I'm actually excited about what I'm about to do, which is, so Ryan and I are both founders of one of the funded channels, as you know, the Yum Yum F Network, and that's the sort of the Asian American channel that's funded by Google. What's great about that channel is that it gives us an ability to test out some new ideas and be sort of innovative in this space. And so one of the shows that I'm creating right now is called King of the Cover, and you know, we're trying to figure out exactly how we want to structure it at the moment. But we're getting to do a lot of things. You know, obviously we're focusing on engagement, and one of the ideas that we have is we're going to make the third judge. And again, this is up in the air, you know. We'll put these in. Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, yeah. So, but the third judge, you know, we'll have two physical judges. The third judge will be the audience, and maybe there'll be some sort of like robot or something in place of that, you know, judge. But we can have that robot, if it's a robot, actually, you know, pull comments from the last episode and have those comments be said, and that third judge will be a deciding factor. The audience actually gets to vote. And we can pull that off because when you're doing something on the internet, you know, the turnaround is so quickly that we can do things close to real time. And it's something you can't do in the linear world, or you can't do, you know, as a network show, which is exciting. But that's getting the audience to feel like they're really a part of the show. You know, some of their comments will actually be said by this robot, and they will actually be a deciding factor in who moves on to the next round. So. So yeah, that again, you know, I'm excited about what we're doing, and all the new ways we'll try to be more engaging. So,
right?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like what you were saying. I think one of the easiest ways that people do it, like Ray's done it, I've done it, is kind of rewarding people to comment. You know, whether it's like for me, I have a series called Dear Ryan, and basically I take their comments and they write, "Dear Ryan, can you be an astronaut?" And I'll make a video about that. And at the end of the video, I'll say, "Hey, so leave your question in the comments below, and you could be responsible for the next video." And just the fact that people, you know, they want to see their name, like they want to be the ones that's responsible for the video. So every single Dear Ryan video I have has like 10 times the amount of comments. You know, it's just that simple line that just has them more, I guess, more interactive with me. And I see it in my views and comments.
That's helpful. I think we're hearing 4 effectively top-line principles here that you guys are employing to sustain engagement, or build and sustain engagement. And it's the first is not just relatability, but it's almost sort of that prideful integration or association with you as a fan. So Rob, I mean, you're saying sort of, you know, being able to, or you've said before, you know, you speak to a lot of your fans one-on-one in person. Chester, you mentioned you invoke them, you know, in sort of the judging. Ryan, you mentioned you actually have shows or videos that are based on the actual fans themselves. So that relatability and that integration seems to be one. It seems like a second that you guys are mentioning collectively is effectively responsiveness, but more importantly than responsiveness is engendering this notion that you are always there for them because the internet never sleeps, right? So Rob was saying earlier, you try still, even though it's hard with your 400,000 subscribers, you still comment to almost every single one, or at least try to, right? And it's not just about being a sort of reciprocal friend, that it really is about engendering this notion that you are always on, always there, right? Because we do not sleep, and I know most of you don't either. It seems like the third then is sort of going back to what Ryan is saying, which is you want to reward, or the task should match the reward, right? And almost exceed it in some cases. So leaving a text comment doesn't seem like it's that much effort, but over time it is. And the notion that you could potentially create or sort of influence a video is big, right? So having that sort of additive value there and making sure again that task meets the reward, or the reward meets the task seems like another. And then the final of the 4 that all of you are mentioning, and Chester and Ryan haven't mentioned it yet, but they go on tour a lot, whether it's for music or comedy. Rob is mentioning it with his cookbook that's both digital and physical, is making the digital real, right? We don't just live in the clouds, we actually live in sort of this real life world. That's helpful. Let's change gears a little bit. So all of you are actually very, very successful, not just from a fan perspective, not just from a content perspective, but also, which I think is on a lot of our minds, on a financially sustainable perspective, right? And without sharing it broadly, their incomes are to be applauded and are insane in some cases, right? And not just because they're in new media, but also just more broadly. I mean, my parents are extremely envious of you, right? So naturally, the question on our minds isn't how you make money on YouTube or how you make money on new media, but what are the most lucrative sort of revenue streams that you have, that you've explored, and why do you like them? Start with Rob.
Yeah, well, obviously there's YouTube, but as your channel grows and you're getting more people watching, the advertising opportunities come. So like for me personally, we've just finished a series with Virgin Australia, and we've showcased their new food product, and then Virgin's partners, Delta, Singapore Airlines, hear about this and they go, hey, we want to be involved in this too. So we're talking to them about doing stuff. So there's all these things that happen. Of course, me being in food, the possibilities are endless in terms of products that want to be part of what we're doing. Yeah.
And we'll dive deeper into this specifically, because one of my questions is, what do you look for as a creator, and what would your advice be as sort of these brand advertisers, right?
Yeah.
So we'll get into that in a sec. Ryan, Chester, what about you guys? Chester, you're especially fairly diverse.
Yeah, actually, it's the ancillary revenue streams, I mean, that actually make up the bulk of my income.
What YouTube brings.
Yeah, so, and I think that's actually an example, or a testament to how the rates are low right now, and they should, the economics don't necessarily make, for me, as much sense if I'm relying only and solely on the ad revenue. Whether it's consumer products or songs, for instance, I make more money on my iTunes sales than I do actually on ad revenue. Merchandise, you look at the top YouTubers, and they actually, or I don't say top YouTubers in general. I know that with Wong Fu Productions, I believe for a while, I don't know what it is now, but before the brand integration deals were coming down the pipeline, I know they were making, I think, 70% of their income was from merchandise, from stuffed animals and things like this. So they're leveraging their audience and getting them to create these revenue streams for them in other ways. So the other thing that I'm starting to make some money through the branded deals that are coming down the pipeline. So I just did a thing with Kia where we're basically creating advertainment. I would host a video on my channel, and we create some sort of content where it makes sense given my voice and what I do, on my channel, and we integrate that brand into that content. And those, the rates on those are great. Comparable to the ad revenue, that is.
Just I have a question. You're bringing up a really important point. I think about someone named Dame Bo on YouTube. So Dame Bo runs a channel called The Annoying Orange. It's sort of like the SpongeBob SquarePants of YouTube, right? He has an incredibly lucrative show on Cartoon Network as well as a host of sort of merchandise, yet he still maintains his YouTube channel as sort of that core. And in many ways, these opportunities came from YouTube. I suppose my question would be, why does he still maintain his YouTube presence? Why is that so critical to him and to so many others who've done the same, you included?
Yeah, this is where I get really excited, because I think right now a lot of people are focusing on that transactional, right, as opposed to the D2C. Like again, I don't want to say the economics don't make sense, because that maybe it sounds harsh in regards to ad revenue that because we are making a lot of money from the ad revenue. That's great, but there will be a time when that ad revenue really starts to be a bigger number in comparison to these other ancillary revenue streams. So that's the exciting part, because right now a lot of people are focusing in on creating content, owning IP, and selling it upstream, doing these sorts of things. Annoying Orange and what's the other one? There's another. Anyway, the collective has done some pretty amazing things with licensing shows, creating shows and licensing them. So there's money there. That's great. But what's exciting is, and I think this way specifically with the Yum Yum F network as well. So if we can maintain this, and as the numbers grow, get even bigger. I mean, we have YouTubers crossing 10 million subscribers this week. I don't know if you guys know Smosh, the #1 YouTuber. They're going to cross over 10 million subscribers. So at a certain point, once these views start adding up, it's going to be a very, very, very lucrative business. Not that it isn't already, but then we can start saying, okay, now there is somewhat of an ROI. Like we can actually figure out, we know that we're going to make an X amount, and we can start really funding projects, and we can sustain something right then and there. That's the exciting part. So.
Ryan, let's get tactical. Ryan, you're one of the, as we mentioned earlier, thousands of people around the world that are making six-figure incomes on YouTube alone, right? Just on the ad revenue. I'm wondering, people like you are very popular and very high in demand. When brands come to you or TV networks come to you, what do you look for in a good partner? And what would your almost advice be for how to work effectively with you?
I think the #1 thing that I look for is having creative control. I think just like I was saying earlier about, being your fans viewing you as a friend, you don't ever want to just sell something to your friend, So as long as I always have creative control and I have that same voice that I always give in every video, for me it's just as long as it works. If I like the product and I don't feel like I'm cheating my fans, and if I have the creative control to create exactly what I want to create with that product, then it's usually it works. And I've done a lot of deals with a lot of different companies.
Rob, how about you? You mentioned
much the same. I mean, I'm a big aviation fan, so working with Virgin Australia was like super cool. But again, it's got to be authentic, because, pardon my French, but people can smell bullshit a mile away, and so it's got to be authentic, and I've got to be passionate about what they're doing too. I can't, go and promote one of their products if I don't use it or like it myself. So it's got to be real.
Chester, how about you?
It's the same sort of thing. I just want you got to make sure that you actually are, you stand behind that product, or you're going to lose a lot of that authenticity. But yeah, agreed.
Very good. So we're actually elapsed for time. I want to close with a question or advice from each of you. We've talked about so many different things. We've talked about personality in some ways trumps production. We've talked about engagement as sort of the new king, as it were, right? We've talked about new sort of revenue streams that are brought from having a core audience on YouTube. If you were to give this audience your top 2 pieces of advice for being successful in this new digital world, what would they be?
Don't treat YouTube like television, and treat your audience like your girlfriend.
What does that mean exactly, Rob?
Yeah, okay, don't argue with them because you've already lost. And always give them flowers and chocolates, and they will love you forever.
Very good.
I think it's just it comes down to having good content that people like, and then getting some kind of push, whether it's through collabs or through a feature through YouTube. If you have good content, at this point, I mean, it comes down to the push, because everybody has good content. There's content that's better than, I think personally, better than my stuff and half the people in the top 10, and I think they'll never get seen because they don't have that push. So what they really need is, someone like myself or like Smosh or Jenna to give that push to let this content be viewable, I guess.
Chester, how about you?
Yeah, sure. I actually was going to touch on that too. I think collaborations are some of the best ways to sort of find a new audience, because as you know, it's getting very saturated in this, you know, content creation world of YouTube. That's the big question, right? It's like, okay, so we're all gonna assume we make good content. You know, I think my content's good. Like that's the, you know, you're gonna think that. So now it's like, okay, how do I get that seen? So that would be the bigger question, I think. And right now, you know, there's not as much real estate on the front page of things, and trying to get the algorithm to support you is not as much as in your control. So one characteristic you find across the board with any successful YouTuber is they are very hardworking people. Everyone I meet, you realize that these guys are working 18-hour days. Yeah, everyone thinks that, oh wow, what a wonderful life to be, you know, making millions of dollars on YouTube. They earn that money. I mean, these guys work like crazy. I mean, he was chopping fruits with a sword, and and paid the price. So, you know, but taking that in consideration, like they're constantly finding new audience because they're always like finding new strategic ways to do collaborations. And just to add on to that, when you are trying to do these collaborations, it's very important to know who your audience is, what your demographic is. That way you can fine-tune those collaborations so they make sense, so you can really up the conversion of those new viewers into fans of yourself, of your content.
Perfect. Well, thank you, gentlemen, again so much for being with us in the week that matters, and I suppose have a safe journey back up to the internet. Very good. Thank you. Have a good night.